Hello there and welcome to today's video. It's just over 2 years now since my autism diagnosis, so today I just wanted to spend a bit of time in reflecting on my diagnosis and to go through the pros and cons, because it is a question that comes up sometimes in the community. Is the diagnosis worth it? So let's talk about it. I'll go through some pros first of all, and the first is that my diagnosis has given me confirmation of what I already suspected. It's allowed me to be kinder to myself, and it's allowed me somehow to be more in touch with my inner child because I finally have answers for her. I spent years wondering why I just felt so differently from other people. Of course, I would still have this framing as a self-diagnosed or self-realized autistic person, but I think the diagnosis has allowed me to maybe stop second guessing as to whether I am autistic. But I have to say, I really struggled with imposter syndrome for about a year or so after my diagnosis. So getting a formal diagnosis doesn't necessarily quieten that inner voice, that critical voice telling us that you're not autistic. In some medical settings, I've been able to tell the health professional that I'm autistic, which has been helpful at times. And for instance, I've always really struggled in knowing when an appointment is coming to an end or has ended. So I've got a little bit more confidence in asking them, is this the end of the appointment? So I don't feel quite as awkward with it anymore. Getting my autism diagnosis has actually been really useful in terms of getting other diagnoses for co-occurring conditions such as MCAS, POTS and ADHD. And particularly in terms of my MCAS diagnosis, actually, because I got diagnosed with MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, and autism within the space of 1 week, I think it was. So it was really useful to be able to discuss both at the same time. My diagnosis has been really useful in terms of explaining mental health conditions that I've had, including bouts of depression, CPTSD and anxiety. It's also explained why I've never gotten on with antidepressants, and this can be fairly common in autistic people, and why I've really struggled in terms of therapy because my therapists weren't really autism informed, so it was not useful for me at all. So it's really helped explains why. Though of course if you're a self-realised autistic person, this may help explain for you too, perhaps why you've struggled with depression and anxiety either in the past or currently, because there's a sort of high correlation between the two. Now this is an interesting one. Getting an autism diagnosis has really helped me in terms of understanding my parents better. For those who've been watching my content for a while, you'll know that I've had a quite a difficult childhood, as do many autistic people. But for me, because I've been learning so much about autism over the last few years, it really explains my parents, because I do think that both my mum and my dad were autistic, and it's certainly given me more empathy for my parents, and I can now understand why life was just so difficult for them too, and why they struggled so much with having children. So it's been quite a profound experience, and as I mentioned earlier, it's enabled me to provide answers for my younger self, because yeah, it's been very confusing and very complicated at times. My autism diagnosis has helped my partner, Ian, discover his own neurodivergence, and he is a self-realised ADHD person. So it's been sort of life-changing for both of us really, which is really interesting. And it helps explain why we've stuck together through the years, because we both see each other's behaviours as completely normal because we experience the world very similarly. Another pro is that I would never have had the confidence to start this YouTube channel, Creative Autistic, without a formal diagnosis. And that's not to say that you can't start a channel as a self-realised autistic person. But I think for me, I would have really struggled because looking back, I've had various objectionable comments, which is really annoying and frustrating, but I think it's just part and parcel of having a YouTube channel as an autistic person. But yeah, I think I would have really struggled with my confidence otherwise. And also, I would never have found you all through this community. So, for this, I am super grateful because I've been able to find my tribe here on YouTube, and it means the world to me. Now then, I'm going to move on to some cons because I do want to be as open and transparent about the assessments process as I can be. And the first is cost. Now, I am super fortunate because I didn't have to pay for my autism assessment because here in England there is a process through the NHS that you can apply for. It's right to choose, and the waiting lists are, however, really, really long, but it is available for free. But we know that private diagnosis and for assessments outside of England, it can cost an absolute fortune, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds or dollars or whatever your currency is. And it is therefore something that you really have to think about. Is it worth it? I know for me personally, I would never have been able to afford an autism diagnosis or an autism assessment. So I do know that I am in a fortunate position, and I just wish that autism assessments were accessible and free of cost to everybody. But of course, we don't live in a perfect world. Some doctors will infantilise your autism, and I've had this happen a couple of times actually, and it just feels like the health practitioner or doctor just isn't properly informed on autism. So they do talk to you in a way that like you're a child essentially. And they may be like that anyway, but I've certainly noticed it once or twice in the last couple of years, and it does make you feel quite uncomfortable. It's almost like you want to say to them, I'm a fully fledged adult who's autistic, so please talk to me accordingly. Another factor to take into consideration is it's a really emotional experience, and I guess this doesn't really come as a surprise because during the assessment process we need to look at our entire lives and provide evidence that meets the diagnostic criteria, which sometimes means revisiting kind of old or traumatic memories, really. And this was a big one for me, and I perhaps wasn't as prepared for it as I could have been. Also, the process involves other people because the diagnostician will want to speak to other people who know you. So it could be people from your childhood, such as your parents or your siblings. And for me, this was really difficult because I didn't have anybody from my childhood who was able to give, essentially their perspective of who I was or what I was like as a child. So in my instance, I was really fortunate that the assessor was happy to include evidence from my partner because we've been together so long. And this was something that I did worry about because I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to get an assessment because I don't have anybody from childhood really. So it's just something to be aware of. If you don't have anybody from your childhood who can provide that level of information or evidence, or if you don't have good relationships with people from childhood, again, who would have been able to provide that information, I think this can be a bit of a tricky area. So if you wanted to go for a formal diagnosis, it would perhaps be worthwhile speaking with the assessor first to see what kinds of inputs they'd need from other people. And the last one is, some people just will not believe that you are autistic, regardless if you have a formal diagnosis or not. And this is, of course, completely infuriating, but some people just have such blinkered views on what autism is or what autism looks like, which is just a ridiculous concept. So it's just something to be aware of. Some people, including family members at times, just aren't going to believe that you're autistic, regardless if you're self-realised or with a formal diagnosis. So has my autism diagnosis changed my life? Well, psychologically speaking, absolutely so. I'm now in a place where I know that I'm autistic, and most days I'm able to chase away the old imposter syndrome that inevitably turns up now and again. I think what is important to say, though, is that I am a chronically ill person, which means that I don't go out to work. So I haven't been in a position where I've needed to go into work and ask for autism accommodations, such as maybe working from home in a hybrid way, or having a quiet area in the office and away from bright lighting and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you're in a situation where you're wondering whether to get an autism diagnosis and you're perhaps also chronically ill or you no longer work, it's probably worthwhile weighing up what it is that you want to get out of an autism diagnosis. And this is particularly true if you have to pay for an autism assessment. And the idea that most autistic people have to pay for assessments really frustrates me, because it's thought that just 3 in 10 autistic people are in work. So how are we supposed to afford them? And this is why self-diagnosis or self-realisation is absolutely valid. I just feel like my life itself hasn't changed drastically. Well, in a practical sense anyway, and that's outside of running this YouTube channel. And it's almost like my brain wants to compare it to me getting an art degree in my mid-30s, because yes, it was something that I was desperately keen to do. I wasn't able to do the whole art school thing when I was younger for various reasons, so I eventually caught up and did it in my 30s. But I do sometimes wonder, what did my art degree give me? Because I was an artist before I had the degree, so now that I had this bit of paper, or have this bit of paper, has it changed me as an artist in any way? I think the only thing the art degree gave me was the ability to apply for arts funding, and I never got any arts funding, even though I did put in a few applications. And aside from that, my degree hasn't really given me anything other than maybe a bit more confidence to call myself an artist. And it's almost the same with my autism diagnosis. Yes, I do have a bit of paper that tells other people that I'm autistic, but I was autistic before I got this bit of paper, and I'll still be autistic for the rest of my life, as I'll hopefully still be an artist for the rest of my life. So I don't know, my brain always wants to compare the two for some reason. And of course, autistic people can find community online, whether it be YouTube or other social media platforms, regardless if they're a self-realised autistic person or whether they have a formal diagnosis. So I guess if somebody were to ask me, is it worth getting an official autism diagnosis? I would answer it's really what you want to get out of it. Do you need it for accommodations at work? Because absolutely, I think it would be beneficial in that case. Or is it for self-validation, which of course is also really important, isn't it? I feel like it's something that you kind of need to weigh up, really. What is it that you want to get out of the assessments and the diagnosis that follows? Because as we know, there's very little support out there for autistic adults. So that's almost it for today. The other thing that I wanted to say is that Creative Autistic, the YouTube channel, will be too on, I can't say which day because I created this channel on a leap year on the 29th of February, so it's either Saturday or Sunday. But I just wanted to thank you for all being here throughout the last 2 years. I can't believe it's been this long already, because this channel still feels really new to me. But I'm just so thankful for you all joining me every week and relating to whatever it is I'm saying, and you know, all your comments and likes and all the rest of it all means so much to me. It's just amazing to think that I've at last found my tribe. You know, this is something that we often hear people say, you know, find your tribe and everything will make sense. And I could never really understand what people meant by that up until now. So yeah, just a massive thank you. I will be doing a live stream on Sunday. I do live streams the first Sunday of every month. So yeah, it'll be a birthday edition this time around. So I think it'll be around 3:30 in the afternoon UK time, but I'll pop a reminder on my community page on Sunday morning. But hopefully, if you're around, I'd love to see you there. But anyway, thank you for joining me. Give it a like if you got this far. Comments would always be appreciated, and if you don't know what to write, an orange heart would be really welcomed. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again hopefully on Sunday, but if not, I'll see you next Friday. Take care. Bye bye.